can we just give him a great big warm welcome, Teodros Abraham, Managing Director of CSL Logistics. Welcome, Teddy. So, Teddy, thank you so much for joining us. You were just in Germany, correct?
Correct.
What was going on in Germany?
First of all, good evening. Since I've not met any of you, it's exciting to be here. Can you all hear me back there? I'm suffering from a severe sore throat, so believe you me, I'm not trying to sound like Barry White or somebody else. But so thank you. Before we start, I want to say something about Caleb. Use this opportunity. I've known this young man since he was a little boy. So it's exciting to see what he's done, how far he's come. So congratulations.
Appreciate it, Teddy.
Appreciate that. So well done.
Thank you.
So as you've mentioned, yes, I was in Germany last week. There was a global logistic conference that happens once a year. This is a conference that's they started holding this, or whatever you call it, 35 years ago. So this was the 35th annual global conference in Germany. So they had a bunch of speakers. So they invited me to speak on logistics, environmental space in the region. That includes East Africa and Horn of Africa specifically. So I had a presentation on our current geopolitical situation that's occurring in the region and how that affects trade in the global picture. So that was my presentation on, and what different corridors and possibilities will that bring. So this is what my presentation was on. Half an hour. It was scary talking to about 600 Germans, but it was good. Lots of white people, so excuse me.
Amazing. We are so grateful to have you here. We're excited to hear maybe even little bits of some of the stuff you shared there. But before we do that, I'd love to hear a bit like, tell us maybe what is the company that you run, maybe the size of it, just to provide a bit of context for people that maybe haven't heard of your company and what you do. So just share an overview of that and then.
Okay, good. Our company is called CLS Logistics Services. A basic services that we provided: shipping, transport, documentation, custom clearing, the whole supply chain. I got into this business much earlier, but we started the company in 2007. So it's been plus or minus 11 years at the moment. We've grown rapidly. We have about 110 employees with 6 offices within Ethiopia, and we've got a representative in Djibouti that facilitates the sea import and export part. Most of our customers are multinationals, local companies, exporters, especially right now with all the garment and textile initiative that the government has taken. We have quite a number of customers that we handle on a door-to-door basis. And what makes us unique is our partnership with one of the largest logistic firms globally. So we'll be able to do a full door-to-door service for our customers. So for example, one of the things I did last week while I was in Germany was to deal with a potential customer that's going to be supplying a brewery equipment to Ethiopia. I know we've got one too many breweries, but another one is coming. And one of the reasons why they would like to go with us is basically we'll be able to handle all the shipments coming in from Germany and China all the way to Teodros Abraham. So the company just gives us a piece of their purchase order. We handle everything else from there onwards. We make sure that it's loaded, it's custom cleared, transported, delivered, commissioned by the company coming in to commission. So we take it at that point.
And these aren't like 1 or 2 small shipping containers we're talking about here. If you see the machinery that's needed for some of these projects, this is like serious stuff. And so that is an incredible service to provide. I'd love to hear how you got started, how you began this entrepreneurial journey to growing a company like this. Where did it all begin? Maybe start at the beginning and give us some background.
Okay, I don't know how far back you want me to go, Caleb, but perhaps it may be beneficial to some of you. I grew up until 8th grade. I was going to school in Addis. When I was 13, 14 years old, we moved to Kenya with a family. So I grew up the rest of my teenage years. I was in Kenya until finishing high school. Went to the US, did my first degree in engineering, electronics, electrical engineering degree. Graduated in 1993. And end of 1993, I came back to Kenya to done with college and see what the world will provide. And for me, the inspiration to start business has always been my father. So he said, why don't you go to Addis and see how things are? You know, things have changed. It's not like how the Dirk was there and blah, blah. So I decided in 1993 to come and see. End of 1993, I was in Addis. I must have been 24, 25-year-old young man. And I looked at the atmosphere, not knowing a whole lot about business. All I know is my father is a businessman in Kenya. And with his help, I could perhaps do something in the education that I've received. So January 1994, I decided to move back. So moved in here in 1994, January. I don't know, maybe some of you are not born. That's quite a long time ago. It seems like right now. So in 1994, we set up a company called Microtech Technologies. And this was a company that I set up to provide an electronic or a computer science service of some sort, anything to do with technology. For about a year, we pushed on that, but it was just me. And since I had moved when I was 13 years old, it was quite difficult for me to adopt, to understand how things work, the corruption or all the things that comes with it, running a business in the country. Plus, being a young man who's never been in business, it was quite difficult. After a year, I went bankrupt on that. So I went back to Dad and said, Dad, I'm done on this. So he said, what would you like to do? So the next best thing I knew when I was in college was to clean. Because during the day, I went to school, and night, I was a janitor. So I figured, why don't I start a janitorial service company? So Dad agreed, gave me the seed money. And end of 1994, we set up a company called Cleanway. Cleanway Cleaning and Janitorial Services. Now, the difficult part of that was to get the licensing part, because we were the pioneers in that, and it's not part of the list of see, these days you guys don't have that. Back then we had. You go to the Ministry of Trade looks at it, and if it's not on the list of services or products that they approve, they can't issue you a license. So they said, what do you mean by cleaning? We didn't know it's a dat. We don't touch it out. Lemons no touch it out. So imagine, if it's a dat, sofa mata, mentaf, they couldn't get it. So at the end, it took a while to get it registered and issue us a business license. So January 1995, we became operational. We hired in 2 guys. I trained them on how to clean, and we started knocking doors of buildings, residential areas, homes, and walking around with a little van, putting the machine and the guys behind. Young man, 25, 26-year-old, put on my tie, my suit, and there I was. And that's all how it began. And by, I would say around 2002, 2003, we'd reached about 700 employees. Wow. On that. So the company still runs. My sister runs it. Now, how I got maybe perhaps into the logistics part. As you know, after the Ethiopia-Eritrea war, we lost access to port. So thinking what could be done in that aspect, what are the ramifications, and I had some friends that lost a lot of cargo, repossessed at Asab. They couldn't get it in, it was a big of an issue. Ethiopia began using the port of Djibouti. So I figured, what else can be done in this? Can we be more innovative? Can we think beyond just using Djibouti port? So 2004, 2003, I traveled to, again, my home at that time still, Kenya. And I decided to learn what happens in a country that is landlocked. So if you look at countries like Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, that are landlocked, they normally have what they call an ICD, an inland container depot, Darak Wadab. That's how things are done. Because they don't have access to port, they have an ICD. So 2003, I came up with a proposal to set up a dry port facility in Ethiopia. And in doing that, I needed a partner. So I had to look for a global partner that are experienced in Africa and actually experienced in doing dry ports. And I found a French group, approached them. They said, good enough, Teodros, we'll come and see. So they came, we looked at it was good. Put together a proposal. At that time, I thought Teodros Haile, that some of you may know, was head of investment office. Put the proposal to him. He looked at it. He didn't understand what the heck I was talking about. And he said, why the heck do we need an ICD? What is an ICD? What is Darak Wadab? Lemin yasፈልጋል? Djibouti አለ. We just use Djibouti. So it took a while. Documentation was passed to Chamber of Commerce. At that time, there was an individual called Brahana Mawa, who was in charge of Chamber of Commerce. It sat on his table for another 6 to 8 months. He did nothing, unfortunately. And by then I got tired. So I dropped the whole dry port project and moved on. So when the government finally realized that we did in fact need a dry port to operate better our supply chain solutions or services to the country, they set up Mojo Dry Port. And for the longest time, our file was right behind the GM at UNATU, because UNATU started dry port project. So our project was right behind his desk, always on his shelf, because we gave him the whole proposal on how to do a dry port. Of course, I see some cameras, but between me and you,
don't tell anyone, okay, guys?
Don't tell anyone. Had they used properly what we had suggested, today Mojo would have been a much more efficient service provider. So anyhow, gave that project up. In 2006, we came back to it again because the partners that I had approached for this specific project came back and said, Teodros, would you be interested to set up a logistics services, freight forwarding, regular shipping business in Ethiopia? I said, fair enough. Why don't we look at it? And we agreed. So they opened up an office in Djibouti in 2007, and we opened up CLS Logistics in 2007. That's how it all began.